Andrey Rublev should not have been defaulted from his match against Bublik in the semifinals of the Dubai 500 ATP tournament. For you guys that have not seen it, you can look it up. It's all over the internet. But let me tell you quickly what happened. So it was 5-all. In the third set, there was a ball that was close on the baseline. Looked out to me, but I've heard some people say that it was in. The lines judge had called it in. Rublev went on to lose the point and the game. After the point, Rublev got very angry, got in close proximity of the line judge and started mimicking a hand motion like this. Rublev walked back to the bench, and another lines umpire ratted on Rublev, okay? And this guy spoke Russian, and he said that Rublev had sworn at the line judge. Supposedly, he had called him an effing moron. Now, Rublev immediately denied that he said that, and tape actually proves Rublev right. I've seen it many times. It doesn't appear that Rublev said what he supposedly had said. He was just screaming that the ball was out. Now, I want to stress a super important fact, because people think that Rublev got defaulted for screaming at a line judge. He didn't. Rublev got defaulted for swearing at the lines judge. That was the reasoning for the default. And in all the years of watching tennis and playing tennis, I can tell you that this was the most, by far, undeserved default in the history of tennis. Rublev should absolutely not have been defaulted for what he did. Now let me tell you why. So, for you guys that don't know, there are code violations in tennis. So if you throw your racket or if you scream, you can get a code violation. And back in the day, it used to go this way. You used to get a warning, then a point, then a game, then a set, and then you would lose the match. Now, they have gotten rid of the set, and it's warning, point, game, match. And it should be this way. This is a good system because you don't want to default someone for getting one code violation. However, there are things that players do on the court that deserve an automatic default. Now, of course, this is at the discretion of the chair umpire, but generally in the history of tennis, it's been the following way. If a player threatens either a lines judge or a chair umpire verbally, automatic default. If a player, on purpose or not, it doesn't matter, causes harm to a chair umpire, to a line judge, or to somebody in the crowd, or to the opponent, that's an automatic default. So in my opinion, even though Rublev was in close proximity screaming at the line judge, we cannot start defaulting players for getting angry at line judges or umpires. Can you imagine if this was the case in the McEnroe, Connors, and Nastase era? These guys would not be able to finish one single match. So we have to allow the players to show their emotions. It makes it for a more fun and more entertaining viewing experience during the glory days of tennis, when tennis was booming like crazy, when we had Borg against McEnroe, we had fire against ice, we had the hothead McEnroe with the ice cold Borg. And this is what it is, guys. There's going to be different personalities on the tennis court. Everybody doesn't behave the same way. And I want you to stay tuned until the end of this video, because I'm going to tell you what, in my opinion, is the right way to behave on a tennis court. But back to Rublev's default. I want to give you some comparisons to other players who were defaulted in the past. So when Nalbandian at the tournament in Queens hit that little gate that's around the baseline judge, he hit with his foot into that gate, the plastic flew off and hit the line judge in his shin. That's an automatic default. Did any players come to Nalbandian's defense afterwards? No, they did not. How about in Davis Cup, when Denis Shapovalov attempted to rip a ball into the crowd and accidentally hit the chair umpire in the face? Got defaulted, of course, right away. Did any players come to Shapovalov's defense afterwards? No, they did not. How about when Djokovic accidentally hit a ball into the line judge's throat and got rightfully so defaulted right away? Did any players come to Djokovic's defense afterwards? No, they did not. And I'm going to tell you the most comparable situation was Serena Williams in 2009, US Open semifinals against Kim Clijsters. Serena is down a set and it's 15-30. She has a second serve, and the lines judge calls a foot fault on her. So now it's 15-40. Serena gets mad and she says, I'm going to I'm not actually going to say it. You can look it up. But she threatened the line judge verbally. She said what she was going to do to her. That's a threat. In my opinion, that's an automatic default. Did Serena get defaulted after that? Not really, because she got a point penalty. She didn't get an automatic default. So she had a warning prior in that match. So this was the second code violation. She got a point penalty, but with the score being down a set in 15-40, serving to stay in the match, she ended up being defaulted from the match. Now let's compare what Rublev said to what Serena said. Serena's verbal abuse was in a threatening tone. Rublev's verbal abuse was non-threatening in my opinion. So despite the fact that it was close proximity, it's not a right. He should get fined for that. He should get a code violation for that. It's not worthy of a disqualification because Rublev was not threatening the line judge. He was just complaining that the line judge made a bad call. Now let's not even talk about why they don't have electronic line calling. That's a story for another day. But even if Rublev called the line judge an effing moron, I still don't think he should have been disqualified because it's not a threat. We cannot start defaulting guys for expressing their emotions on the court. So I give you all the other examples of players being defaulted and nobody came to their defense. So what do you think happened yesterday? Did anybody come to Rublev's defense on social media? Yes, they did. There were so many professional players on Twitter and on Instagram that voiced their opinion of how unfair this default was. And I gained a lot of respect for Bublik because Bublik offered to continue to play the match right after Rublev was defaulted. So look, here's my opinion on behavior on the tennis court. And this comes from someone that used to play and now coaches. So it's the inside look and the look from the outside as a coach. I don't like when players throw rackets. That's one of the reasons why I love Rafa so much. You should not throw your racket. You should not disrespect the racket. You shouldn't make verbal threats to umpires, opponents, the audience, your own coaching staff or family members that are watching you. Listen, I've seen a lot on a tennis court, and this is something that happens quite frequently. This is not okay, and you can't behave like that on the tennis court. You shouldn't hit balls out of the court. You shouldn't hit balls on the other side of the court or into the fence, so you shouldn't throw your racket across the court into the fence or over the net. What can happen, guys, is that you can accidentally hurt somebody, so this is definitely something that you should never do. However, when it comes to expressing your emotions and let that out every now and then by screaming or getting angry, I'm okay with that in one scenario. If a player can demonstrate to me that they can let all the anger out and then on the next point they are right back in it, focused and playing their best tennis, I'm okay with that because sometimes it feels good to just let it out. And also sometimes you don't have control over your emotions so much. All this stuff is a lot easier said than done from the outside. So as a coach, it's easy for me to say, hey, don't scream out there. But as a player, I know that sometimes this just happens in the heat of the battle. Now, if you're someone that gets angry and things just take a turn for the worse, you start playing worse and you just get into this negative mind state, then you should try to block these emotions and block yourself from getting angry and try to stay cool out there like Roger Federer. Now, speaking of Roger Federer, I want to tell you that unfortunately, the ATP is very inconsistent when it comes to defaulting players because I will never forget, and I love Roger Federer, don't get me wrong, at the French Open, Roger Federer hit a ball into the crowd. And this was so bad because there was a guy in the crowd, you can see him on camera, that goes like this. He was so scared he was going to get hit by the ball. Now, Federer didn't get defaulted in this match, but it's not only that, he got the Stefan Edberg ATP Sportsmanship Award at the end of that year. And there's many other examples of players hitting a ball into the stands. Nothing happens. Sometimes not even a code violation. There's examples of players throwing rackets into the fence, hitting balls into the fence, almost hitting ball boys or lines judges, and nothing happens to them. So there has to be more consistency, and to me that should always be an automatic default because I've seen it, guys. The tennis ball is a very dangerous thing. People can lose their eye if they get hit in the eye socket from a tennis ball, and that is something that's not okay. However, as I said today, we have to allow players to express their emotions. We can't have robots out there. And even though what Rublev did yesterday was terrible, it deserves a fine, it deserves a code violation, but it does not deserve a default.